Thank you.
A crackdown in the world's largest democracy. Police in India wielding batons, charging toward people stepping out during the lockdown, stopping cars, making people do push-ups when they break the rules, even squats. All this as Indian officials try to stop the outbreak from threatening their population of 1.3 billion. Here at home, the Senate reaches a deal on that massive $2 trillion relief package. It is set to help small businesses and push cash into the pockets of millions of unemployed Americans. But some lawmakers still have reservations. The U.S. has more than 60,000 cases, about half of them here in New York. The number of hospitalizations is outpacing predictions in America's COVID epicenter. But there are glimmers of hope about the effects of social distancing. This as more than half of America's states have now shut down non-essential business. And overseas, Prince Charles has tested positive for COVID-19. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for streaming with us. I'm Lindsay Davis. Look, we look forward to the day when we can report something different. But once again, coronavirus cases continue to rise. The New York governor said that hospitals here will soon have more patients than beds, and coronavirus infections are not expected to peak for another 3 weeks. And a sight that no one wants to see in any city, tented makeshift morgues set up in New York City, officials say, just in case. Now, these are certainly peculiar and scary times. Normally, states advertise what they have to offer, hoping to lure tourists in and have visitors come visit. But now Hawaii is asking tourists to stay out for an entire month. Alaska is imploring outsiders to quarantine for 14 days, and Florida is telling anyone from New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. But the good news, because looking for silver linings has become increasingly important for all of us. Today, the New York governor said that early indications suggest social distancing appears to be slowing the spread of the virus. ABC's Tom Yamas starts us off.
Tonight, a grim sign this pandemic is far from over. Teams setting up a makeshift morgue outside of New York's Bellevue Hospital, something they did during 9/11 and Hurricane Sandy. Overnight, at least 5,000 new cases in the state. At one hospital alone, 13 people dying in just 24 hours. The hospital saying the virus is taking a terrible toll. But tonight, one sliver of hope. Extreme social distancing measures may be working. The rate of hospitalization slowing slightly.
This is a very good sign and a positive sign. Again, I'm not 100% sure it holds or it's accurate, but the arrows are headed in the right direction.
But Governor Cuomo says we're still weeks away from hitting the peak in New York City, a scenario which could collide with the president's new timeline, proposing to ease restrictions by Easter Sunday. That's April 12th.
And what a great timeline this would be. Easter as our timeline, what a great timeline.
But even the nation's top health experts recommending not committing to any date.
That's really very flexible. We just had a conversation with the president in the Oval Office talking about, you can look at a date, but you got to be very flexible. And on a literally day-by-day and week-by-week basis, you need to evaluate the feasibility of what you're trying to do.
New York, the epicenter in the U.S., still in need of more space and more supplies. 4 field hospitals underway and still in need for those critical life-saving devices, ventilators. The governor announcing 11,000 are on the way, but he needs a total of 30,000. Cuomo saying they may do what Italy did, split the ventilator. 1 device, 2 patients.
We're exploring splitting, where 1 ventilator could do 2 patients. Italy has had to do this because they were forced to do it.
Those ventilators desperately needed for patients like 25-year-old Jack Allard from New Jersey, who is in a medically induced coma.
This virus is really dangerous. He's very, very sick.
The 26-year-old former lacrosse player woke up with backaches and a fever nearly a week ago.
He never vaped. They were asking us that. He never vaped. He never smoked. I mean, he took his health very seriously. I mean, he's an athlete.
Jack's doctors now trying an experimental drug for Ebola, his family hoping it will save him. In New York City, 46% of coronavirus cases are people aged 18 to 44, the virus hitting all ages. 62% of deaths are men, and 54% of people who die from the virus are over 75. That's why in Woodbridge, New Jersey today, more than 90 residents had to be transferred from an outbreak inside this nursing home. The U.S. Naval Hospital ship the Mercy heading towards Los Angeles today. The medical crew on board preparing beds and equipment to handle a surge of up to 1,000 patients offshore. And tonight, a new effort to help from North Carolina to Colorado. Veterinarians now donating medical equipment, including ventilators.
This is just one more example of the One Health and us being able to partner with our colleagues on the human side.
New hot zones now popping up across the country. Tonight, disaster declarations for Texas and Louisiana. In New Orleans, Mardi Gras, just weeks ago, a celebration with massive crowds and days of partying may be one reason the coronavirus is now spreading faster here than anywhere else on the planet.
My EMS department, over 50% of my people are now on quarantine. And so while we've unlocked additional resources at the state level, the state can no longer go on without without federal assistance at this time.
And the virus now taking its toll on first responders.
It's very personal. Each and every day I get a report and the numbers climb.
In New York, more than 200 members of the NYPD have been infected with the virus. In Detroit, at least 2 officers have died. And for the Army of Americans working to keep up with a new surge in home deliveries, cases of the virus now reported in 9 Amazon warehouses.
And Tom Llamas joins us now. Tom, New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo today said that his state is the hot spot right now, that it needs resources, but it's prepared to then help other states when they become the new hot spots.
Yeah, that's right, Lindsay. He's been saying this for a couple of days now. Essentially, he wants to make sure they can fix this problem here. They can help out in the pandemic. And once they learn everything they can, and once other hot zones start popping up, like in Louisiana, then they can transfer some of the equipment, transfer some of the knowledge, and hopefully help out other states throughout the country.
And let's go now to some of that hopeful news that hospitalization rates are slowing in New York because of social distancing. Is that trend expected to continue?
Yeah, you know, it's a small silver lining, and Governor Cuomo, every night he tells me he looks at all the stats, he looks at all the data, and then he presents in those news conferences the next day. This is one silver lining he mentioned. The hospitalization rate went slightly down, but again, he still says we're nearly 2 to 3 weeks from the peak of all the cases when they hit the hospitals, so we're still very, very early, at least here in New York City, in this pandemic. Lindsay?
Nonetheless, we will take that silver lining. Tom Llamas, thank you. For more Americans, this pandemic is no longer just about statistics, but about real people in their families and their lives. The victims of COVID-19 are now both young and old, previously healthy, and those with other medical conditions. Adding to the enormous heartbreak, many of the sick are now physically separated from their loved ones, fighting this battle in isolation. And in other families, the virus already has spread. Our Matt Gutman shares these heart-wrenching stories.
Tonight, a 17-year-old boy from outside Los Angeles has become the youngest person in the country to have died after contracting COVID-19.
Every kid in this community, they're grounded. People have got to stay home. I am not going to lose another child in this city.
The CDC is tonight looking into the cause of the teenager's death. His father, an Uber driver, also infected. And in San Diego, 2 infants testing positive. And a warning from doctors tonight.
So patients are coming in commonly with many different complaints, but most often fever, cough, and shortness of breath. I think the thing that's really interesting is that patients are also coming in with nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, which isn't really something that we would expect with these respiratory illnesses.
And across the country, chilling firsthand accounts of similarities. Terry Chaseley's in her 40s and active until the virus colonized her lungs.
I was at the gym working out, and then fever and nausea kicked in.
Within days, she was hospitalized.
Well, I've had it going on. This is my 16th day now.
The whole time, she hasn't seen her husband and 3 kids.
He leaves food at the door. I have FaceTimed with my family, and my kids leave notes and little crafts for me at the door. But I have not touched them or spent any time with them this entire quarantine.
One of the symptoms, a loss of smell, which also happened to Yvette Paz.
But one thing that I did notice that changed, I completely lost my sense of smell.
And it got much worse. The 30-year-old Army vet was hospitalized. She was released and actually felt better until the virus triggered pneumonia. Finally, she says doctors put her on an anti-malarial drug called hydroxychloroquine as part of a clinical trial. In Missouri, 5 family members you see in this picture got the virus. First, matriarch Jane Winehouse. Then her son Jason, his brother, sister-in-law, and father Mike. All of them falling ill, 3 of them suffering pneumonia. The virus also spreading through Erica Cave Miller's family. Speaking to ABC's Start Here podcast, she describes the agony of losing her husband Jermaine just days before his 45th birthday.
I felt so helpless, and I'm sitting there like, what am I supposed to do? He needs somebody there with him. He needs somebody praying over him. He needs somebody there, but again, couldn't do anything.
Once he tested positive, doctors separated Jermaine from their 2 kids and from Erica. She never got to say goodbye.
Such difficult stories to hear. We're joined now by Matt Gutman. And Matt, you report that a COVID-19 patient, Terry Chaseley, felt better, then fell sick again. Is that something that you're hearing about, waves of illness?
We are. People are calling it the roller coaster effect, where they think that they're on the mend maybe a week or 10 days or 2 weeks after first getting symptoms, and then a few days after that, they get walloped again by this virus. Again, it is a very difficult thing to grapple with, and doctors are still learning how this virus behaves.
And what about that loss of smell? I've also heard loss of taste. Those are symptoms that are believed to be associated with this virus.
They are, and that's one of the things that is so surprising about this virus, but doctors say it's actually not that surprising. The varied symptoms, right? We've heard people having vomiting and nausea and headaches and backaches and obviously pneumonia eventually. But what I was told here at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center is essentially that the virus attacks your entire system. And by doing that, it essentially sends your immune system on hyperdrive. It overreacts and attacks your own body. And that's why we're seeing so many varied symptoms for this particular virus. Hopefully, at some point, we can get a vaccine and those treatments that we know will work. Lindsay.
All right. Matt Gutman, thank you for your reporting. We appreciate it. Now, the ripple effects of this virus are far-reaching. As we were saying, many family members are being kept away from their elderly loved ones in nursing homes and assisted living centers for weeks now to protect them from COVID-19. That's the case for Gail and her husband, Pastor Lester Taylor. I want to thank you both for joining us.
Thank you for having us, Lindsay.
So, Gail, your mom, Charlotte, who's in a New Jersey assisted living center, she just celebrated her 89th birthday over the weekend. And then today you learned that she tested positive for coronavirus. Walk us through how she ended up being tested. What were her symptoms? And how are you handling this revelation just from a few hours ago that she now has the virus?
Yes. So on Saturday, I spoke to my mother. And I noticed that she just sounded a little withdrawn, overly tired. I didn't hold her on the phone long, but I knew something was different. On Sunday, I heard from the nursing home. They told me that she had a fever of about 100. And I said, okay, something's obviously going on. They told me later on the temperature went down to 99. On Monday, they told me her fever spiked to 102. So I called the doctor and I said, listen, 3 things. She's 89. She is in a nursing home and she has a fever. I want her to be tested. So he agreed. And they called me today to tell me that she tested positive. So I'm still in shock. I'm stunned. I think there was a part of me that did not think the test would come back positive because the nursing home, they have stopped visitations for a couple of weeks now. I did have the chance to see her, my husband and I, on her birthday, but we were separated by glass. Right. So there was no physical contact. So I'm just, was surprised. I'm sad, but we are Christians and people of faith, so we believe in the power of prayer. But certainly very concerned.
And your mom does have underlying conditions. So is the guidance for now that she should stay put or seek treatment in a hospital?
So because this just started, she will stay put. Right now, her symptoms are just the fever and just her feeling tired. My mom is a 2-time lung cancer survivor. She's also a diabetic. So, of course, there is, great concern in that area. And we have consulted with an infectious disease specialist. So he has some things in mind, and we'll, talk about that more on tomorrow with him. But for now, she will stay put. She is quarantined. She does have a roommate that has been removed from her room.
And this would be difficult news, obviously, under any circumstance, but how much more difficult does this become now that you're not able to actually see and visit with her?
That is, this is the most difficult part of not being able to be there with her. My mom was sick a couple of months ago, and I was there every single day, all day. She actually had to be transported to the hospital, and my husband and I, we spent every day with her. So we were really hands-on. I got to talk to the nurses, the doctors. I was really firm on certain things. So I really got to be her voice. My mother also has dementia. So it is really, really difficult not to be able to go there and, just to support her and to also be her voice.
And what are the next steps, and what kind of control do you have, albeit from a distance?
So not too much, actually. Right now, she's stable, and they are treating her symptoms, Tylenol and things like that. They did tell me that she also has a UTI. So they're working with that as well. But it's just constant calling, me calling the nurses. My mother has a wonderful doctor. He is new to her. He hasn't been with her as long as her previous doctor. But this guy I really like. When you call his number, he answers the phone. So you know how rare that is. But it's really a 1 second at a time, 1 day at a time. That's how we have to kind of go right now.
And Pastor Taylor, as a man of the cloth, what kinds of words of comfort are you giving your wife in this moment?
Well, again, she said we are people of faith, and so we believe in the power of prayer, and we have been, praying for her. She's a strong woman too, and I believe she has fight in her, but we're just putting it in the hands of the Lord right now. There's nothing else we really can do because we cannot be there. We can't see her. We have to rely on the communication. And I may say the facility has been excellent in terms of their communication with us, in particular with Gail. We can't ask for anything better, but it's nothing like being able to see someone.
Right. We thank you both so much for speaking with us during this difficult time. And we're wishing a speedy recovery and good health for the entire family.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you.
And now to Washington, where Congress is still hammering out the details of that $2 trillion bill to rescue the economy. The Senate reached an agreement overnight on a sweeping deal that will provide relief to millions hit hard by the shutdown of most businesses, including direct payments to most Americans. But the Senate has hit some roadblocks as they race to get to a vote as Americans continue to wait. ABC News Chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl has the very latest on the negotiations.
Tonight, congressional leaders are hoping to pass the biggest economic relief bill in American history.
A fight has arrived at our shores. We did not seek it. We did not want it. But now we're going to win it.
As part of the $2 trillion deal, people earning $75,000 a year or less will get a $1,200 check, plus $500 per child. Those earning up to $99,000 a year will get a smaller check.
Help is on the way. Big help. Quick help.
For Elizabeth Mejia, a waitress in Los Angeles, it's not a moment too soon.
I need to know that I'm going to be okay, and so will my kids be if we were to get sick right now.
Under the bill, people will receive unemployment benefits for up to 39 weeks instead of 26. And the size of an unemployment check will go up by $600 for 4 months. There's also help for small businesses. Diane and Lily Joyle own a flower shop in North Carolina.
We've had probably 20 plus events cancel or postpone, a lot of weddings.
The bill includes a $367 billion loan program for small businesses who do not lay off their workers, and $500 billion for large corporations in hard-hit industries like airlines and hotels. There's also more than $100 billion in aid for hospitals and healthcare systems, and money to help the states offset their losses.
And John Carl joins us now in Washington. John, so where do things stand right now on a final vote on this bill? And what is the president saying about getting this finalized?
Well, it looks like it's on the verge. There are some last-minute hiccups, as there often are with major pieces of legislation. But my sense is that this is moving towards passage, if not tonight, by tomorrow in the Senate, and then the House would follow pretty shortly after that.
And many Americans are frustrated that this is taking so long. And I want to put up a chart, if we can show that Morgan Stanley forecasts that more than 3 million Americans may have filed for jobless claims in just the past week. Does Congress understand the urgency that so many Americans are feeling and they need help right now?
Well, I don't know if everybody in Congress understands that, but I certainly believe congressional leaders understand that. I mean, Lindsay, if you take a step back and look at what is happening here, this is a $2 trillion economic recovery bill. It is far bigger than anything the Congress has ever passed before. You mentioned the comparison with the auto bailout. This is a massive undertaking here, $2 trillion, and it is passing by congressional standards with lightning speed. And regarding those unemployment benefits, a key feature of this bill, as I mentioned, was extending the length of time that people can be on unemployment, but also adding $600 to those unemployment checks every month for 4 months. So it's a big bill. It does have wide bipartisan support in Congress, but nothing ever moves quite as fast as you'd like it to on Capitol Hill.
That's right. Okay, Jonathan Carl reporting for us in Washington, D.C. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And when we come back, the terrifying video, storm chasers dodging debris after a tornado rips through the South. Prince Charles testing positive for the coronavirus. How close has he been to the Queen? And we'll take a closer look at the impact the COVID-19 emergency is having on small businesses.
I got word of my layoff on Monday, March 16th at 11 o'clock at night after my shift. Upper management called for an emergency meeting where they explained to us that as of that moment, me and along with about 30 of my coworkers were officially laid off indefinitely. The company had zero response to any of our questions, such as how long is this going to go for? And this layoff completely changes our way of living. It's hard enough to get by on 2 incomes, but now to not be able to rely on my share is completely unsettling. You start to ask yourselves, are we going to be able to afford to buy food? Are we going to be able to pay our rent at the end of the month? Are we going to be able to afford car payments, our insurance? To any employer that's considering layoffs, my advice to you is to be as open and honest with your employees as possible. Give them guidance, give them assistance with as much as they possibly need, because at the end of the day, we understand what you're going through. And all we ask in return is that you understand what we are going through as well.
Yeah, many blindsided by all of this and looking for some compassion as Congress finalizes that $2 trillion economic stimulus plan. They are racing to get much-needed cash to businesses that employ fewer than 500 workers. America's 30 million small businesses, those catering shops, web design firms, bookstores, and yes, even comedy clubs. As Devin Dwyer discovered, the coronavirus crisis is taking a toll even on those whose primary purpose is to make us laugh.
Stand-up comedy has gone silent in the nation's capital.
It's not funny, that needs to be clear.
The pandemic, no joke for small business owners like ALLYSON JAFFE, who's been helping people laugh off their stress at her DC improv club for nearly 20 years.
It's also not healthy to just be in total fear and panic. That's going to do more damage to you. The virus is going to hurt you, but that feeling's going to hurt you too.
After novel coronavirus hit, she canceled upcoming acts, refunded tickets, and laid off all 50 of her employees, including her husband.
He knew it was coming, but I just, said it, and he said, well, this is the first time I got laid this month, so there you go. That's what happens when you work in a comedy club and marry a comedian. They have that kind of, which was funny. So I was sad, and then I laughed, and then I was like, all right, we'll get through it. It's been a nightmare. It's been, the word that I keep telling and saying is horrific.
Many American small business owners say they're very worried about survival. Experts believe alleviating those fears is critical to stabilizing the U.S. economy now in free fall.
This crisis is one of the worst things I've ever seen for small business.
Karen Mills led the U.S. Small Business Administration through the Great Recession and recovery.
It actually far exceeds the problems that we had in 2009. And that's because half the people who work in this country own or work for a small business. So that's half our jobs. And they have very low cash buffers. On average, they have about 26 days of cash.
So this is really a race to survive.
It is absolutely, because when you run out of cash as a small business, you're dead.
The cash crunch worries Adam WATERREUS, a used bookstore owner in D.C. He just completed a major renovation of his shop and has little savings on reserve.
Having people stop coming to the space is necessary for health and safety, but it does dramatically stop.
How dramatically has the business dropped off? 30%, 50%?
I think probably closer to 75%.
WATERREUS laid off 4 employees this month and is doing all he can to keep 3 others on payroll. He's nervous about taking on more debt with new loans, but says that new stimulus plan might help.
It seems like that might be happening, which I think is important, that they're giving certain provisions to small businesses.
Congress is expected to send more than $350 billion in emergency loans to small business owners, and with a major perk. They won't have to pay back the government if they use the money to pay rent or their workers.
I would take that deal any day to allow us to do that if those loans could therefore be forgiven.
Pia CARUSONE owns one of the only women-owned distilleries in the world. She makes her craft vodka and bourbon in the shadow of the U.S. Capitol, where she used to work as chief of staff to then Congresswoman Gabby Giffords.
Crisis management has been my life calling. And, staying calm is certainly an important factor. Figuring out how to find moments of clarity in otherwise very chaotic. But the question is, do small spirit producers like us survive? And, remains to be seen.
For now, survival means making hand sanitizer.
As a distillery, we're uniquely positioned to have on hand the
one of the main ingredients in making hand cleaner.
CARUSONE's distillery churning out small bottles of homemade gel, filling a 1,000-gallon order just this week from the D.C. government for police and EMS.
People are going to flow freely and reinfect each other and spread the virus. So I, as a small business owner who is suffering, would be very, very glad to make sure that we continue to shut down until we kill this thing.
The White House and some economists are pushing to lift the business shutdown as soon as possible. President Trump setting a goal of Easter, April 12th, weeks ahead of what many public health experts say may be safe.
Would you support that?
I would say no. Like, it's not safe. I don't want. That's not, I think, responsible for me as a business owner. I don't know that Trump's going to know that. I would rather hear from. I'd rather hear from DC. I'd rather hear from Mayor Bowser and other DC health officials than I would him.
Are you looking at this panicked that you're going to have to shut for good?
So, I am trying to stay very positive. I believe in the power of comedy. It's depressing to see it totally empty, but I know that we will not always be this.
That spirit of determination, combined with a financial boost from government, a cause for cautious optimism that despite a financial body blow from the virus, small businesses can survive and continue to thrive.
I know we'll be filled with people again that want to be here, that want to laugh, that need a laugh. And I look forward to that day.
Me too.
And hopefully sooner than later.
Me
yes.
too.
For ABC News Live, I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington.
Yes, we could all certainly use a good laugh. Our thanks to Devin. And we still have a lot more to get into. It's been another horrific day in Italy with hundreds more dead. Tonight, we speak to the doctors in Italy, what they've faced, what lessons do they have for their colleagues here in America. There's been so much misinformation during this outbreak. We'll break down fact from fiction. But first, our tweet of the day, Apple's big announcement.
To tell you this morning that Apple has sourced, procured, and is donating 10 million masks to the medical community in the United States.
Hello everybody, I'm Elizabeth Mejia. I work for Areas USA at the LAX airport. I've been a server and been in the company for almost 8 years. I received a text message from my manager saying that the restaurant will be closed, don't bother coming into work tomorrow, stay at home, stay safe, but that HR will let us know if anything happens regarding layoff or get back to work, maybe just to sanitize or start working or something. But it's been 4 days. I need answers. I need to know that I'm going to be okay, and so will my kids be if we were to get sick right now. We don't have health insurance and we don't have money. Wages, health insurance, we need it.
So many Americans struggling with unemployment caused by COVID-19 and waiting for some relief from Congress. While the details of the bill are still being ironed out, it will be massive. So let's take a look at what we know by the numbers. The nearly $2 trillion relief package will be bigger than the $1.4 trillion discretionary budget plan for the entire federal government in 2020. It's also more than the $787 billion stimulus plan passed in 2009 to combat the Great Recession. The center of the current bill, direct payments to some 90% of American taxpayers, with $1,200 each to individuals who earn less than $75,000 or $2,400 for a couple earning up to $150,000. An added $500 per child will also be given. $250 billion will go to a dramatic expansion of unemployment benefits, extending current unemployment by 13 weeks with boosted benefits. More than $350 billion will go to emergency loans for small businesses, and $425 billion will fund and give cash to big companies, including an additional $75 billion for industries hit hardest, including airlines and hotels, with some strict conditions and oversight. By comparison, the 2009 bailout of the American auto industry cost about $80 billion, with most of it eventually paid back to the government. We'll be sure to stay tuned for the latest details as the bill gets finalized. And we still have a lot more to get to. Another cruise emergency. 77 people falling ill with flu-like symptoms stranded off the coast of South America, making its way to Florida. The ship does not have any COVID-19 tests on board. And with crucial medical supplies running low in Italy, we'll hear the decisions that some doctors there had to make as they keep up their heroic fight to save lives. But first, here are some of the trending headlines on abcnews.com.
Watch ABC News on location for Facebook Watch. Right now, how do you make sense of it all?
If you're like me, searching the internet all day and going through social media, it can be terrifying, and that's why we're here.
Now streaming on ABC News Live. One place here for you with the good information you need.
How do you help your family, your kids, your friends deal with all of this?
Answering all your questions.
We are all in this together, and we're going to get through this together.
Pandemic, what you need to know. Streaming everywhere on ABC News Live at 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern.
What's the most innovative daily news podcast out there to listen to every day? Well, the Edward R. Murrow Awards say it's Start Here, the daily news podcast from ABC News. Even the New York Times calls us a top news podcast worth listening to. So if you like getting behind the biggest...
Senate will act to help the people of this country weather this storm.
On Capitol Hill, Senate leaders announcing that Congress and the White House reached an agreement on an unprecedented $2 trillion spending package meant to offer relief to workers and business owners suffering under the COVID-19 pandemic.
This proposal, unemployment insurance on steroids, will be the greatest expansion of unemployment benefits in decades. A social safety net wide enough to catch the millions of American workers who became unemployed virtually overnight.
That has the markets up for the second straight day. But lawmakers are going over the draft and are reworking the language on one section.
This bill pays you more not to work than if you were working.
The COVID-19 pandemic continues its aggressive spread across America and beyond. And one of the fastest infection rates is in the state of Louisiana.
The trajectory that we're on is very problematic. The growth rate that we're seeing exceeds the capacity to deliver health care.
Health officials also alarmed at the infection rate in New York City.
New York, the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, accounts for more than half of the nation's 60,000 cases. The state's Governor Andrew Cuomo says he's seeing signs, though, that the strict stay-at-home measures are starting to work.
New York's medical examiner has started setting up temporary morgues in Manhattan, temporary tents and refrigeration trucks if needed. New York has 30,000 confirmed coronavirus cases, but other states are also seeing a rise as testing expands. 77 people on board a cruise ship heading for Florida are sick with flu-like symptoms.
Passengers say they haven't been off the ship in more than 10 days. Their meals now delivered directly to their rooms. So many waiting for answers in the coming days.
There are many people in their 70s and 80s in this ship.
71-year-old Prince Charles, son to Queen Elizabeth and heir to the British throne, announced Wednesday that he has tested positive for COVID-19. A statement from Clarence House says he has been displaying mild symptoms but otherwise remains in good health, and he's been working from home throughout the last few days as usual. A spokesman adding Prince Charles's wife Camilla, the Duchess of Cornwall, has also been tested but does not have the virus.
We're tracking those severe storms, a confirmed EF1 touching down between Mississippi and Alabama. These images from outside Tupelo, Mississippi. The tornado crossing state lines. You can see the damage, homes and structures destroyed.
Welcome back. 683 lives lost in Italy today alone. Doctors and nurses there are on the forefront of an uphill battle, putting their lives on the line to try to save thousands of patients that come through their doors. Maggie RULLI has this report.
For the past few weeks, it seemed Italy was losing a war with the invisible enemy. But in the last 3 days, Italy's reported cases have slowed. A glimmer of hope for a situation that's ever more dire. Over 70,000 infected, more than 7,000 dead. It's taken an international effort to begin to contain Italy's cases. The Chinese brought their ventilators. The Russians deployed medics and supplies. The Americans posted on the front lines.
We just finished in the women's ward giving their morning medications. We're not able to let them go until the symptoms of the coronavirus are resolved. So they end up being here for quite some time, which can be challenging for them. Now we're gonna pop into the ICU and check on them and see how they're doing and what kind of help they need.
A constant race to keep up for those at the forefront of this battle. Every minute critical.
I would say that we are at the end of our strength. We do not have sufficient resources, and especially staff, because apart from everything else, now the staff are beginning to get sick.
And with supplies always running low, every decision counts. In this case, it means forfeiting basic needs in order to save lives.
Every hospital is lacking in these days of protections, like masks, like cover for the shoes. We cannot, for example, during our shift, go to the toilet, because this will mean to change and to change again. And this is how can I say, a waste of protections.
Despite the help from others, it's still not enough. Italy turning a passenger ship into a floating hospital.
We don't have enough places for everyone.
But it's the very places that care for the sick that seem to be hotbeds for infection, taking the lives of many of the nation's caretakers. In Italy, at least 30 doctors have died since the outbreak. Officials warned it was just a matter of time before Spain saw their numbers skyrocket too. And they have, the country reporting astounding numbers despite its strict lockdown. Nearly 50,000 cases, of those, thousands of healthcare workers infected.
When I saw that within 12 hours of taking the test they were calling me, I knew that something was not right and that I was positive.
In this video circulating on social media, patients on the floor of this hospital, some heard coughing. Field hospitals that look like they belong in war zones, now a common sight there too. And around Europe, preparing for the worst to come. Italy is proof that it's imminent, that unless countries get more testing, more beds, more doctors, more supplies, they'll likely face the same fate and see the same heart-wrenching scenes of caskets silently waiting to be laid to rest.
And Maggie Rulli joins us now. Maggie, just an awful situation there and a warning to the rest of the world for those doctors on the front lines. Now, in retrospect, do they think that they could have done anything more to prepare themselves?
Yeah, Lindsay, I spoke with some of these doctors earlier today, 2 out of a Milan hospital that's been hit so hard, and they both told me the same thing. They just wish that they had more time to prepare, to get ahead of this. They said that, they need more beds, they need more ventilators, they need more of that personal protection equipment, they need more doctors, more trained nurses, more of everything. They're just so exhausted. And what really stuck with me is they said, looking at America, looking at Europe, rest of Europe, you guys had time to prepare. You have time to get ahead of this. You should be building more hospitals right now. You should be getting more of these ICU beds. You should be getting more ventilators, training more nurses. And so they really hammered that point home, that now is the time to prepare. It is still not too late, but it's getting there. And if you don't do these things, you're going to probably end up just like Italy. Tough to hear, Lindsay.
Tough to hear, but words that we probably need to hear in order to prepare. And Maggie, switching gears just for a moment, we heard a warning today from the World Health Organization about countries potentially reopening too early.
Yeah, this was interesting, Lindsay. World Health Organization coming out, really sort of pointing the finger at countries that say they want to open up early. And they reminded these countries that this could potentially be dangerous. This could infect more people. This will not be helpful for the world if countries start to open up. And they really hammered home the point that countries need to stay closed. They need to practice social distancing, practice this self-isolation. This, according to them, is the only way we're really going to start to beat this virus. Lindsay.
All right, Maggie Rulli for us in London. Thanks, Maggie. And with the increased time many of us have at home, you may be spending more time on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Likely people on your feed are posting about the coronavirus. But how do you separate fact from fiction? Our Diane Macedo breaks it down for us.
They seem helpful. Viral posts full of advice on how to treat coronavirus, how to kill coronavirus, even how to test for coronavirus. The problem? Many of them simply aren't true. Like this viral post claiming drinking water every 15 minutes will flush the virus into your stomach, where acid will kill it. The truth?
So that myth doesn't really pan out because it's more of a digestive answer for a respiratory problem.
Another viral post claims specifically drinking warm water is effective against the virus.
I think that people have come up with this possibility because there has been some discussion over the virus replicating in our throats. But again, this virus is a respiratory virus.
Instead of drinking water, this post falsely claims gargling with salt water or vinegar eliminates the virus.
Short answer is no. But I found that people who have sore throats, which can be a symptom of the COVID-19 virus, find that this helps relieve their sore throats. And if that's the case, go for it.
Some on YouTube suggest drinking Miracle Mineral Solution, or MMS, which is essentially chlorine dioxide.
Chlorine dioxide kills every pathogen, every virus, including the coronavirus.
But the FDA warns ingesting these products is the same as drinking bleach and has caused serious and potentially life-threatening side effects. What if you just want to know if you have the virus? One post mentions you must have a dry cough and no runny nose. But our own Kaylee Hartung, who tested positive for the virus, explains that's also not true.
It really all started with a runny nose about a week ago, and that was 4 days after I'd returned from a week spent in Seattle. What was notable to me was that I wasn't having the symptoms that were being so closely associated with coronavirus. I wasn't having any sort of a dry cough, I didn't have any shortness of breath, and I didn't feel any pressure on my chest. So it was easy for me at first to think, this is nothing. This is not something to be concerned about.
As an emergency physician, I've seen people come in with all types of symptoms, including lack of smell, diarrhea. So the short answer is each person will probably have different symptoms to the COVID-19 virus, many of which will probably be mild.
Another post falsely claims you're not infected if you can hold your breath for more than 10 seconds without coughing.
Only some patients are presenting with a cough. So I would advise people not to hold their breath. If you find that you have symptoms that are similar to a flu or a cold, at this point in time, just assume that you have COVID-19 and self-isolate yourself.
So with so much information out there, how do you spot a fake? Our partners at First Draft News advise asking yourself how the message makes you feel. Does it make you want to buy something? Like, share, or subscribe? Does it make you fear or hate someone? Or do you find it funny or shocking? Each of these can serve as a warning that you may be looking at misinformation. And whenever possible, get your info from a vetted medical source like the CDC, World Health Organization, or the National Institutes of Health. One more thing you can do is check the supposed source of the information. One of the posts we mentioned claims to come from Stanford Hospital, but if you go to Stanford's Facebook page, you see this message. The post did not come from Stanford Medicine. So if you have questions about COVID-19, go straight to a reputable source or ask your doctor. And if you're not sure if something's true, don't share it. Lindsay?
Super helpful tips there. Our thanks to you, Diane. And when we return, an essential business keeping people fed as the food service industry reels.
These are some crazy times, you know. The restaurant industry is severely impacted by that, and I can tell you that firsthand. I had to lay off about 60 employees in one day, and sitting across from them, I don't think I've ever cried so much in my entire life. You know, telling people that you're laying them off with the uncertainty of when they're coming back is something that I don't wish upon anyone. We have laid off more than 7 million employees in the past week, which is crazy to think about. Restaurants operate on such small, razor-thin margins that 2 weeks without any income can be devastating to most. It's what's really scares me right now is the future. You know, I think as people, we're gonna come out a lot better, a lot more self-sufficient. You know, the things that we used to pay people for, whether it was laundry or haircuts, we're learning how to do those things now ourselves. And there are some positives to take away from this. But we need to come together as a people and be united, because we're better, stronger together.
I'm 56 years old. I've been working at 21 Club for 33 years. We are very concerned about how we're going to pay our bills. Most of all, our health insurance. Actually, we are bargaining with the company how we're going to keep our health insurance, something that it shouldn't be even happening. It's really sad. It's really sad after you put so many years of service. And the restaurant, one of the best restaurants of the city, you know, it's just kind of turn your back on you. You know, it's kind of tough. I'm waiting for their answers, and I hope something good come out of it. I think the new company is willing to help us, so I hope they stand up and come forward for us.
When we hear about essential workers who are still on their jobs during these emergency orders, we often think of the doctors and police officers, but what about meal preppers? Lauren Aseo, the CEO of Fresh and Lean, runs a business of essential workers who are keeping people fed. Take a look.
Hi, my name's Lorena Aseo. I'm the founder and CEO of Fresh and Lean, a ready-to-eat meal manufacturing company. During this time, it's extremely important to us to not only ensure the safety of our employees, but also ensure the safety of our product that we are delivering to our customers. We are an essential business, so during this time, we are taking that duty very seriously. We are very, very fortunate to be in the position that we are in, being an essential business. So within the community, we do have a lot of other businesses and companies that are needing to shut their doors, and there are a lot of people that are in need of jobs. With that being said, we are hiring. So during these tough times, we do want to be here for the American people, and we will do our best to ensure that what we are putting out is always safe and that we are ensuring the safety of everybody. Thank you.
And Laureen joins us now live. Thanks so much for joining us, Laureen.
Thank you for having me.
So while many people in the restaurant industry are getting laid off, your company is hiring. You just said as much. What kind of jobs are you hiring for?
So we're hiring for everything from production, kitchen jobs like vegetable preps, meat preps, fulfillment workers in the warehouse, pick and pack, janitorial, sanitation. So we're hiring pretty much on every position in the manufacturing plant currently.
Do you have any concerns about being able to staff up during this time, or you think it'll be easy?
I mean, it's never easy, but I mean, we're not so much concerned. I think with everything going on right now, and we're hearing so much about people having to unfortunately close their doors, and it's such a tough time for so many people. And so we're trying, as much as we can to help in as many ways as we can. So, yeah.
These days, if we don't want to cook, we have to order in or get food delivered. What exactly are you doing? Extra precautions you may be taking to make sure that the meal deliveries are as safe as they can possibly be?
So being a food manufacturer, we are actually governed by a lot of government agencies on a day-to-day. So we follow and abide by very strict food manufacturing rules. Our food safety is #1 in all of our plans. So as we do that day-to-day, obviously right now it's an extra concern, especially with the staff. So I will say that we have taken a lot of extra precautions on our staff. Everyone is checked when they come into the building. If anyone is showing any type of symptoms, they are sent home, and we are, following the CDC guidance and doing as much as we can to stay safe. But we are taking extra measures when it comes to safety and hygiene, sanitation, and then the extra security checks.
Any personal favorite go-to meals?
I mean, our salmon is really good. I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I do eat the meals all the time since I spend most of my time here at the office. But our salmon is great. We specialize in vegan meals. We have a lot of really good stuff on the menu.
All right, Laureen, thank you so much for what you're doing and for your time tonight talking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And one last meal tonight before we go. Our image of the day, outdoor eating during a pandemic. These folks in China enjoying a meal in the park under a tent. Whether this is effective or not, we can't exactly say, but at least they're making an effort. And that is our show for this hour. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. I'm Lindsay Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us, and have a great night.